My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
So, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program,
I am cloud hired.
See! I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glow Cloud team.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we are here to talk about your Cloud Architect resume, your Cloud Architect interview, and your Cloud Architect social media profile. Because if you're looking for your first AWS Solutions Architect job, or first Cloud Architect job, or first Enterprise Architect job, or honestly, any tech job, you have to be able to pass the interview. I've personally interviewed approximately 6,000 technology professionals over the last 25 years, and I can tell you which ones get hired, and I can tell you which ones do not get hired. I can also tell you and show you the most common mistakes people make on their interview and their social media profiles that employers will simply use as a means not to hire someone versus what they're looking for. So I want you all to get hired. I want you to have a career that you absolutely love, and that's what today's about, and it's typical, and today is free. This is the kind of training we would normally do internal to our students, but I want you all to have this. So we're going to talk about resumes, social media, and LinkedIn today. So that's what we're going to talk about. My name is Mike Gibbs. I'm the CEO of Go Cloud Careers. I've spent 25 years now in technology, in every kind of technology role you can think of, like a network engineer, network architect, cloud architect, security architect, enterprise architect, business architect. And I now have people that I've trained that work at Apple, Amazon, Cisco, Google, IBM, Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Palo Alto Networks, Zscaler, TELUS, PNC Bank, MUFG Bank, Kalian, and so many other institutions. And I want you to have that same degree of success. I am joined here by Christopher Johnson. He's my Chief Operating Officer. He worked in HR for a period of time, so he can give you the HR perspective as well. And I have our Chief Marketing Officer, Alonzo Coleman, who in addition to being an incredible cloud architect, is an expert of branding. Why do I have him here today? Your resume is nothing more than an advertisement that says, why should I talk to you? So who better to talk to about advertising than advertising executives? And Alonzo has built big global brands, big banks, big insurance companies for the last 30 years, and he brings that with us. And all three of us also hold MBAs and have all had to be in a position where we've had to hire, fire, and do all these roles as a manager. So we're going to get you the manager side, because if you know yourself and you know your enemy, as they say in the art of war, you will be victorious every time. So know what the manager wants, know what you can offer, find a way to marry that together, and you're going to have great success. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So give me a hashtag Cloud Architect interview so that I know that you are here and you are awake and you are alert and you are oriented. And clearly I bumped something off on my desktop, but that's neither here nor there. And then after that, we're going to start getting into the concept. So I first want to give you a few pieces of information. And then we're going to do some interview demos. And then my team and I will give you examples of things. I also want to make it very clear that we're going to save some time. I picked 4 or 5 LinkedIn posts. And these are posts by well-meaning, hardworking people that I really want to have a great opportunity. You won't see their names in this post, but I want you to see how hiring managers would view these posts and the implications of these posts on someone's career or keeping them from getting hired, because I don't want you to make the same mistakes. There are some of these things that are just not obvious, but they're things that managers are looking for. So that's what we're going to do today.
Well, and of course we've got a couple of people that have volunteered to take part in some exercises with us that we're going to be bringing in for the discussion as well. Don't forget about that, Mike.
Absolutely. We've got people we're going to actually bring in. We're going to give some sample interviews in certain ways, and we're going to interview people based upon what's on their resume. We don't know them. They're people that have volunteered to learn the impact of their resume on their interview. And one of these resumes is so scary good. Let's see how that interview goes. It's scary good for a networking person.
Just out of curiosity, is that one S or J? Or is that what? I forgot, I didn't put S or J on the documents. Okay, never mind. There goes my code system.
Yes, let's not worry about that for right now, but that's what we're going to talk about. So here's what I want you to all understand. Your resume is an advertisement about you. The whole goal of the resume is just one thing: to bring you in for the interview. That's it. But the resume has another goal. The resume will direct your interview. That's right. I want you to understand this, that your resume, what you put out there, is going to mostly determine the interview you actually get on the job. So if you put things on your resume that you don't know, there's a really good chance you're not going to be able to clear that interview. How good is this chance that you're the really good chance? Well, I can tell you for right now, after 6,000 interviews, this is the most common reason people don't get hired. Because here's what hiring managers want: someone that can do the job. Now, that doesn't mean your experience. It means your capability to do the job and do it well. The next thing they care about is, can they trust you? Right after that, can they trust you? They care if you know what you know and know what you don't know, so you don't make big mistakes. And keep that in the back of your mind. They want people that are excited about the work, that are passionate about the work. Employers are looking for emotionally intelligent people. They're looking for team players and people that are willing to go above and beyond. Why am I saying this? Because that is what employers want. So if you're going to create an advertisement that says, why should I interview you? In your resume, you should have something that shows some of these characteristics in there, at least as many as you can do that by the way you demonstrate actions. Now, on that interview, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to show that you are what that person is looking for in the context of those things that they care about. Can you do the job? Can they trust you? Do you know your limitations so you won't make mistakes? Are you energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the work? Are you emotionally intelligent? Are you willing to go above and beyond? Are you a good team player? So please understand that. So I kind of hope that sort of makes sense. We actually have some people that are going to join us soon for practice interviews, but I just want to actually just show these things right now. That is absolutely critical. Now, when we interact with other humans, we typically we typically look at the entire package of communication. And the entire package of communication, if you have the ability to do it, is visual. If you have an opportunity to be on camera versus off camera, be on camera. If you have the ability to go and show up in person, show up in person. You'll typically make a bigger impact. And why is that? The statistics show us that in interpersonal communication, if you look at the actual content of what the person receives in that message, 55% is what you look like when you say something. So your movement, your posture, what have you. 38% is what you sound like when you say something. And 7% is your actual content. So if you can make it sound richer, if you can make it more visual, and you can communicate things visually at the same time as auditory, people are going to get a bigger message. So if you want to impact power and show your capabilities, if you've got the opportunity, be present and use as much as you can to be more lifelike and realistic. Get your cameras on so you're not hiding down like this on the camera. You don't want that. You don't want to be your head chopped off either. So prior to an interview, plan your lighting and your cameras if it is remote like this. And then here's the next couple of things I need you to remember on the resume and the interview. On your resume, the average employer, if they can't see something in the first second that they're interested in, your resume is gone. Now, if you can capture them in the first second, you probably have 10 more seconds to convince them why they need to read your resume. And that's going to be in the executive summary. That is what you can do for them. I want to make that very clear. Your resume is not what you want. Your resume is what you can do for them. You are a solution to their problem. You're worth a whole lot more that way than someone that's just doing stuff. So it's going to make them be more likely to bring you in. And then everything on your resume, I'm going to give you some tips right now, and I'm going to show you later what some of these resumes look like, and I'm going to show you what happens. Make sure you know what you can answer any questions that are actually on your resume. Make sure you can explain it simply to me. I recommend the format if it's a technology question. What is the tech? How does the tech work? And what are the benefits for using it? Those types of things. But frame it in a manner that I can understand. Because the hiring manager doesn't have an unlimited amount of time to listen to you. In some cases, if you can't get an answer out in 30 seconds or less, the interview is over. In some cases, you have the opportunity to substantiate more. I recommend learning how to read the body language of the audience. My students get a lot of training for this, but as a rule, if the interviewer is leaning in and nodding, keep talking. If the interviewer is getting back in their chair and they're looking bored or they cross their arms, stop talking, at least that. And also look at other parts of the face. But I can't go through a full body language, facial instruction reading the audience, but that's typically what we would do in an interview if we were going to coach someone on how to do it. So here we go. Chris, Alonzo, you want to say anything to kick this off? Maybe talk about a webinar or a free thing that we have to give away, or a free interview guide that people can download too. And then you want to introduce something, and we'll do our first practice interview, and then we'll talk about some other things along the way.
All right, sounds good. Well, we definitely want to welcome everyone. This has been an exciting time. I know everyone is enthused. One of the things that I definitely want to underscore is our 50% off Cyber Week sale. We've launched that earlier this week, and we are excited for what 2025 can bring. We want to bring you all along with us with competency, understanding the role, being able to excel as a cloud architect in all its many forms. And we want you to join us at Go Cloud Careers. Chris?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got all kinds of resources for you guys out there. We've got all kinds of stuff on our YouTube channel, especially related to the interview. But in addition to that, we've also got some documents and some ebooks for you. We've got a how to win the interview guide, and I'm going to put the link to that here in the chat box in just a second. Just got to get all my ducks in a row here, and here we go. There it is. So I'm going to put this in the chat box here for everybody. And let me see, comments, get the free winning the interview guide. There we go. So that'll be in the chat box here in just a second. So I know we are excited to get the first person up here. So we've got some random volunteers. There's no preparation, so this is going to be completely cold, that's the fun of it. We don't want anything. We didn't want anybody to try and prepare or fix or do any of this or do any of that to make sure they get it looking just right. We wanted it exactly how it comes, raw as possible. So that's why we asked for some volunteers this morning. If you're on our email list and you hadn't checked your email, you're probably going to see an email later today from this morning that said, would you like to take part? Be on the lookout for those again in the future, not just for these type of opportunities, but other ones. We might be doing some more opportunities for people to volunteer. But so we've got completely raw, I guess you could say. We've got their resumes. We've got their LinkedIn profiles. Mike, I have not sent you the LinkedIn links yet because I didn't want to send you too much stuff at once. I know you got all kinds of stuff going on.
I sure do.
So I've got those. So we've got the resume and we've got their LinkedIn profiles. And the way that we're going to approach this, I believe, Mike can correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a long week, so we've been doing all kinds of stuff. We're going to be using the resume and asking them questions based on their resume. One, for two purposes: to showcase the importance of knowing what's on your resume, but also to figure out, hey, maybe that shouldn't be on the resume. Maybe we should reframe that. So it'll be kind of a hybrid between a interview practice and a resume optimization. We're not going to get a full interview practice in, and we're not going to get a full resume optimization in, but the purpose is to showcase that importance so that they and you watching can then go back and take a look at your resume and your LinkedIn profile and say, you know what? I have no idea what this is. I couldn't talk about this if my life depended on it. Delete. Or, hey, I can expand on this a little bit because I know this really well. Let me add a little bit more to it. So I think, are we ready for the first one?
Mike? I am ready to go. Yes,
all right.
Let's go.
So we're going to go with, it is the security resume that I sent to you.
Is this John Smith?
Well, they're both John Smith.
Oh.
I anonymized them.
John Doe.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. Is this the one that says anonymized? Okay.
What is it?
Anonymized security.
Anonymized security.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Is that the one you have open?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's bring up, I think we got Jay here. Jay, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Hi, Jay. Thank you so much for your service, first and most importantly.
Did 20 years gracefully.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And because you come from the Air Force, I'm going to give you a little guidance very quickly. I'll explain it, and then we're going to get into this. You have your OODA loop, and I have my OODA loop. And for those that are not familiar, it's basically if you find yourself in a situation, basically you have to, you see it, you have to figure out where you're at. You then have to observe what's going on. You have to make a decision, and you have to act. So when I read this resume for John Smith, what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to look for something, and then I'm going to gauge the way he responds. Then that will determine my next level of questions. As a rule, if I get an answer that I like, I'm going to go to a completely new topic in an interview. And that's how anybody would as a manager. If I get an answer I don't like, and I sense weakness versus something that's on the resume, the manager is going to pounce like a cat that just saw a rat in front of them. And that's typically what happens. And I say this because this is typically there. So, John, you have what I actually look at right now on the surface and see a very scary, good resume. It's almost a little scary. So you might actually be able to do great with this, but I'm going to show you how I would normally do things. What is your goal?
Eventually, I want to be a cloud security architect or a network and cybersecurity architect.
Okay. And that's great because they're almost the same job, honestly, because basically network in a data center, virtual network in a data center, you've got a lot of networking, so that's going to be really good. Now, when I look at your resume just from the surface, what I typically see is networking. I see much more networking than security, regardless of how you wanted to position it. And that's okay. Networking people know a lot about security. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, John, tell me about yourself.
I did 20 years in the Air Force in telecommunications. Telecommunications actually morphed into networking. And what we normally referred to as network security is now called cybersecurity. So I grew up from two-wire telephone all the way to satellite transponder, and then learning how to secure it later in my career.
I like that. I'm with you. I remember when it became network security and then it branched out into more. So could you talk about the difference between, say, network security and end-to-end security?
Network security for me was the type 1 link encryption, where your encryption channel, your data channel is encrypted, but the user still has to provide their own measures on how they want to handle their data. When I worked for the DoD, Defense Information Systems Agency, had a policy called FTO, encrypt for transmission only. So everything was encrypted whether you wanted it or not if it left the geographical region. But the users at their option by their rule base could encrypt or leave their data in the clear. But it actually got encrypted anyway if it left the geographic area.
Okay. So I still want to hear a little more about security versus network security. But since you mentioned encryption, what's the difference between symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption?
It's the way the keys are shared. The symmetric encryption, the same key is used by both parties. The asymmetric encryption, you would have a private key and a public key. So you have the issue of you have to have a pre-shared key when you do the public and private.
Okay. And which one is used for encryption and which one is used for decryption?
The public key is used for the encryption and the private key is used for the decryption once it's at the distant end.
Okay, great. All right, I like that. So let's say I'm using IPsec as a form of encryption or other encryption forms. What am I usually getting out of encryption? It's more than just making sure the information is gibberish. What are the other benefits of encryption?
I'm not sure what answer to give here. Okay. I know I'm trying to give a GRE tunnel that's secured, so I'm not following the question.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask it to you a different way. So encryption doesn't just make the information on the link gibberish. It does many other things and provides many other benefits. One of them is prevents against a man-in-the-middle attack. How could encryption prevent against a man-in-the-middle attack?
Okay, the man in the middle would need the key to be able to, even if he can intercept the data does him no good unless he has a key to decrypt the data and actually see what it is in the clear.
Okay, so with encryption, there's some concept of endpoint verification, right? And that's how I can determine that it's me speaking to you, John, versus me speaking to someone else.
Yes,
but
the key validates you are who you say you are.
Okay, so we've got the authentication piece there, which is great, and that's really where we protect against that man-in-the-middle piece. But also, with IPsec, for example, I can't send a message and then not say that I sent it later. It's called non-repudiation. What mechanism makes that happen?
Don't know, sir.
And that is a fine answer. Okay, I'm totally fine with that. There's actually some sequence numbers as the messages are sent, but I'm totally good with that. It looks like you've got a lot of experience with networking.
Would it be timestamps in the packets or the packet order? You know, if you were actually to interrogate the header, you're going to see what order the packets need to be reassembled in to get the data back to intelligible form.
Okay.
Is that what you were driving at?
Yeah. But the point is you were getting there. And when you weren't 100% sure, you didn't try to lie. So this is by all means so much better. And I'll show you normally what I would get to a response to that. And you may see others today. So I'm totally good with that. Now it looks to me like you've got a lot of networking.
I was SME of telecommunication per GSA FedSim criteria.
Okay.
I worked firewalls. I worked network security appliances, email security appliances, all of the endpoint like Titanium, Semantic, McAfee. Now, there's just countless products. Some people use my CV as a thesaurus of networking terms.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at that. So I see that you put down here when you say you have over 20 years experience with O&M networks carrying diverged days of voice video over OSPF, BGP, public ISPs, point-to-point protocol, multi-link point-to-protocol, MPLS, LSPs, and carrier VPN. So you said you've worked with MPLS systems?
Yes, sir. I was certified with Marconi ATM and in IP, MPLS, LSP, label switching is the closest thing in IP that relates back to ATM.
Okay, that's great. And yes, I'm totally familiar with that. What are the benefits of using penultimate hop popping when egressing the MPLS network versus popping the label on the last hop?
State the question again.
Yeah, so I'm designing my MPLS backbone. What are the benefits of popping the label on the router prior to leaving? It's called the penultimate router. The router before the last router that the packet leaves the network, versus popping the label on the last router as it leaves the network and it leaves the MPLS network and goes back to the customer.
I've heard the term before. I know normally if you do the label at the last point, then once it gets into the carrier's cloud, you can't see what's going on with the LSP. So I think it's probably some benefit for troubleshooting, if I have to guess, but I don't know for 100% sure.
Okay, so because you have MPLS, what are the means that I can use to signal a tunnel? Is there any way that I could say take an IP network and guarantee that I've got a gigabit per second and signal a tunnel based upon that?
If you're using class of service and quality of service, yes, you should be able to do that. Quality of service guarantee that you're going to get there.
Well, quality of service is more about prioritizing, typically speaking, like a queuing, one traffic goes above another, or potentially even rate limiting. This is something different. There's a signaling protocol that I can use in MPLS to build a tunnel, but it first has to ask, is there enough bandwidth for it?
The RSVP. That's the RSVP protocol.
Okay. Good. That's exactly what I was trying to look for there. So what would you classify? Yeah, tell me how the RSVP protocol works.
I would have to do a refresher to be able to intelligibly explain that.
And that is totally fair and totally reasonable.
I haven't messed with RSVP since 2014, so just the fact that I remembered RSVP was pretty amazing for me.
Yeah, if it's not something that you're working with constantly, or it's not something that you had to think about how to design it, I totally get it.
And I've never been a system architect, so that's why I'm watching your videos, because you're going to turn me into a system architect.
Definitely. I'm going to go down one or two more, and then I'm pretty sure I've already figured you out and where your strengths are, and I'm going to be able to guide you after this. But I want to get a little better. So in OSPF, we have neighbor states, and that determines, when the routers come up, how they form an adjacency, how they exchange LSAs. Do you remember the OSPF neighbor states?
The OSPF neighbor states. No, BGP, I would remember more. And the reason why I can't properly explain it is because where I worked, route metrics and priorities were jacked to force things to route certain ways, because different customers paid for different levels of service. So we didn't use any default metrics for OSPF. We had stat muxes, we had ATM, we had satellite, we had government satellite. So things were forced to route over certain paths based on their metrics. So if you want a textbook answer, no, I can't tell you.
And well, I mean, these are the same regardless of the metrics in an OSPF domain. They all have those same states, but that's okay. You said BGP. Do you know the 6 states that a BGP router goes from the time it starts at idle and ends up at established, and what happens in these states?
I know there's you got the idle, you got advertising, and I don't remember all 6 because I have not worked with these protocols for years. I would have to like read a CCNA refresher to be able to intelligently speak about it.
And that is okay. Now, last question I have for you. Tell me why I should hire you.
I will learn the architecture of the network placed in front of me, and I'll be the most persistent troubleshooter on your team. And once I learn it, then I can teach everybody else.
Okay. And what was your goal, job?
Eventually to become a cloud security architect or a network security architect.
Okay. So let's kind of dissect this because there's a lot of good in here. Now, do we have 2 resumes from you? Is that what it is?
No. I mean, we do. Yeah, his sorry.
I have 2 that I sent. I sent one cybersecurity focus and one on network operations security center, because I have like 27 years in the NOC, and cybersecurity is taking over and cloud is taking over. And every time I interview, I'm told you don't have current cybersecurity, and ISC2 CC is too low of a level to count for anything, and you don't have cloud. So that's why I'm getting passed over on almost every interview, is because they want somebody more cloud aware and with deeper cybersecurity certification, which I will obtain.
It's not the reason. I can tell you exactly what's happening. First, you're very smart. You've worked very hard and you've done an incredible amount of things. That is one thing that's obvious to me. It's also obvious to me that you're probably the person that they said, go fix stuff, and you figured out how to just go fix stuff when it needed to be done. I saw that on your resume, and that's what I ascertained when I spoke to you.
That's the correct assessment. I haven't been sent to too much formal training. So like if it's anything beyond putting a computer together, which I can do in my sleep, I probably can't use the proper terms to explain it, but yes, I have figured it out on my own and made it work.
So I can see it, I sense it, I see the way you're thinking. I tried to do a couple of things, and here's what I want to do to see why I did it. We'll talk about the difference between the architect knowledge you need versus the engineering knowledge that you have in a minute, and that's okay. We'll also talk about what went well on that interview, what it didn't. It's obvious when I probe deep on any of the technologies, you haven't gotten deep on them. It's obvious to me that you've been very hands-on, because there's a big difference between that underlying theoretical knowledge of how do you design it and that practical hands-on knowledge of, okay, here's how I build this thing. It's a completely different set of knowledge. So if I probed on encryption, it was weak. If I probed on cybersecurity versus network security, because cybersecurity used to be network security. It used to be just what we did. Access control is VLANs, private VLANs, firewalls, IDS, IPS systems. But it also includes identity strategies. It also includes application security, the way it's actually coded. It also includes security policies. It includes encryption, storage encryption, network encryption, payload encryption. It involves microsegmentation. It just involves so many more things other than just network security. So I kind of hope that makes sense. So when I peel back the onion on security, I feel like you don't have enough of it. I will tell you this, completely free on our YouTube channel. We have a CCSP certification bootcamp, and that would be a very valid cloud security certification for you. And the training for that is free on our channel. I still think you need more than that to go from this to architecture. I think you need architecture training. So
yes, I agree 100%.
You need to understand how that BGP finite state machine works and what are those BGP messages and attributes. And here's the reason why. You're always going to have to say traffic has to go this way versus traffic has to go this way. We want to send half of our traffic here and half of our traffic there. But if you don't understand the protocol and how it works, you won't be able to do it. And likewise, to people like me that
how the router makes the decision.
Yeah,
you need that information to know how the router is going to route your traffic. So that's why you have to understand the protocol down to the level of the metric or the states.
Yes. And that's the case because right now I see it pretty easy to get you a strong engineering job, but to get to architecture, you're going to need the architecture training piece. Now, I'm also going to tell you what went out well in the interview. I liked you. And that went very well for you. I also trusted you. And you didn't try to lie to me. And I'm going to tell you, that already was a big impact compared to 90% of the people I interviewed. So that was really solid. What I saw was you didn't exactly know what you knew and knew what you didn't, though. And that's a little scary from an employer perspective. I don't think you knew what you didn't know about MPLS, for example. Like on the penultimate hot popping, and I mentioned egress. So what happens is when it gets onto the service provider network, it gets smacked with a label. And as you know, the labels get switched along the way. Or if we pop it at the last hop of the router, that last router has to do IP forwarding and it has to pop a label. So it's twice as much work on that router CPU, and the routers may not be able to handle that. So if we pop the label on the penultimate router, we can offload that CPU there, and then the last router only has to do IP forwarding. So that's understanding, that if you're going to design an MPLS backbone, you need to understand where your routers are and what's computationally going on. So I use that as an architecture baseline question. Same thing with those OSPF questions. But I felt that you had a lot of that hands-on. So that's the missing gap. I can tell you, we take a level of experience like that, and we take an honor and trustworthiness like you have, plus this, and you're good. I think the worst opportunity you had was telling me when I asked why I should hire you. You took the platinum opportunity that you had, and you basically showed me not to hire you as an architect. So you told me you're a good troubleshooter.
Oh, yeah. Because
I'm a
wrong point.
I believe it, but I'm an architect. I need to get somebody in front of a client. They're giving presentations to the board. They're leading RFI, RFP, RFQ responses. They're doing everything other than troubleshooting.
That's what I want your training for.
Yeah.
To put me in that.
We would love to work with you, and we can get you there. So,
are you taking?
Here's what I would. What's that?
Are you taking anybody for internship?
Yeah.
I'm in Northern Virginia.
All of our students get an internship, but yes, I'd love to speak with you after this. But here's the key. If you had said to me, you should hire me because I will be able to get you to your goals. I've served as a member of the Air Force for over 20 years and left with honors or distinction. I've worked in the private sector in networking and cybersecurity for the last 2 decades. I have the ability to take direction, lead a team, and drive results. You spent 30 years?
40,
okay, even better.
40 years, Mike. I started in the Air Force in 1981.
And you're still there?
Yes, sir. I'm still wanting to be in the field. Yes.
Wow. I saw it was at one point. So I would drive that. I've done this for 40 years. I've worked on this. I've dealt with large environments that are very complex. That have all kinds of unique challenges.
340 post-camper stations, 80,000 customer base.
But that's the piece. It's all of that. It's that It's that heavy military service. People know in the military you can't just leave when it's 5 o'clock. You got to get the job done. They know you have to be able to take direction, and they know you're willing to, typically speaking, be pretty mentally tough, which is 3 of the hardest things to find in today's world. So use that.
Government managers came in the morning and still saw me there, they knew something had went wrong during the night because I was the swing shift guy. And many times I was there for the morning brief so I could explain to them in common language what went down, and that's what they appreciated about me.
Yeah. And I can see it. So that's my advice for you right now. These are the things that I would sell myself on, and I would tune my resume to be a little closer to what you really know. So you got enough networking things. Maybe drop the MPLS-LSP, for example.
Well, if I learn the protocol to the level of your question, then I need to keep it on there.
Or bring it to the level where you can answer it.
Or you bring your resume to the level of your understanding.
Yeah.
So I want to chime in here for a second because it's very clear. We've covered the technical aspects of it very well. But so circling back to the overarching theme of our discussion today is how does your resume impact your interview? If this were an architect interview, that resume might not have actually gotten you the architect interview.
No, I'm 100% sure. That was system architect was not the idea of either one of my resumes.
Yeah.
The NOSC resume is to get me back in the operations center. The cybersecurity resume is to get me in an internship in cybersecurity to be brought along to become the architect. So neither resume was with a system architect in mind.
So that's what I'd like to take a second to talk about. It needs to be. It needs to be. There's not one thing on the resume that leads me to believe that if I were to invest time in an internship with you, or even a low, a mid-level role, there's nothing on the resume that would indicate that you have the capability to do anything non-technical. So I'm just going to venture to guess that in your 40-year career, and I know you did it because it's buried at bullet point number somewhere in the teens, you led teams.
Yeah.
I was a deployment engineer. Well, I started out as an airman. We have to find these non-technical things that you've done.
Bring them up.
And bring them up in the resume. So, like, for example, and again, we're not going to be able to work on the whole thing here, but we're just pointing things out so that you can have this in mind when you look at your resume. Again, even if you're not using it to get the architect job right now, you have at bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. At the 13th bullet point is the first thing of leadership. Over 10 years of experience as a team lead.
That's number one.
That's number one.
Okay, I was putting technical up top.
No.
Not for an architect.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. That's the transition of the mental thought process. So, like, say for instance, Jay, one of the things that I've seen is that what some companies are going to know, you've got extensive experience technical wise. How did that create business value? Do you have any related metrics about how you improved it for them to use as a measuring stick to see this is where we started off, this was the current state, and this is where he brought us to the end state or the desired goal, what did that look like in the form of numbers that they can understand and quantify for a business?
Years ago, the stars format and the the action and the result. I've tried to put my bullet statements as close to action as result as possible in my accomplishments under the job. But a lot of times there's no way to quantify it because numbers were not captured, like how much of an impact I had. Yeah, anything I do from now going forward, I'm going to have hard statistics, so my resume can show it. But
it's not just that
before,
right? But
that's not what Chris is referring to. I'll give you a sample. So I'll take something off of where I was basically functioning as a chief architect for a healthcare vertical at Cisco, and here's what my resume says: lead architect of health information technology architectures at Cisco. Management consulting to key strategic healthcare organizations throughout the world. Led business counselor of healthcare CXOs to improve Cisco solution offerings to healthcare customers. Presented at key industry conferences, executive briefings, partner conferences, and across Cisco. Partnered with corporate marketing for the development of marketing collateral. That's what I have as an architect, because I'm not going to be touching the technology. I'm not going to be configuring it. So there will be times where I talked about technical things. For example, designing a demilitarized zone for a mission, designing a high security demilitarized zone for web servers for a bank, a global bank. But it's not going to get any deeper than that. And I don't want it to, because when employers want an architect, they don't want an engineer, they want an architect, and they're thinking business executive. So the problem becomes is, if you show up looking like an engineer, they're not going to interview you in the first place. You have to look like that architect they're actually looking for. Or when you go on an interview, what ultimately happened, you've actually got 3 or 4 different networking and security careers down on your resume. You really do, even though you don't realize it. And with all that MPLS, OSPF stuff, there's a risk that it dives deep into those routing protocols. With some of the security stuff, there's a major risk, and I didn't do it intentionally, that I could start going down, how do you design this security system? Tell me what data loss prevention systems and how they work and how they monitor egress traffic, for example. Or tell me what the difference between SIEM systems that use AI to analog logs and look for patterns of behavior versus others, and tell me about those algorithms. That's the problem.
Yeah,
so what we got to do is it's not like an engineering thing where you used to stick a bunch of skills and shove it in there and then you put it. You show what you did for your clients. And honestly, it could have been led a team. It could have been deployed a new application, deployed a new guidance system. It could be any of those things, but less on the hardcore acronym stuff everywhere.
Yeah, it's finding a balance. It's not getting rid of it, just trimming it and reframing it. And
tone it down. And I'm so competitive. Everything is like balls to the wall all the time.
This almost looks like a recruiting report for a high school quarterback, like trying to get a college scholarship. I was like, whoa, this is everything.
I don't know how much I need to include.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I need to put led teams.
Yeah, so let's
higher on the resume.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up, and then we can get to the next one. So to reframe this, so a couple of good tips. If it's okay, Mike, I think we can each give like our top 3 tips that we would suggest. So me, from the HR background, I'm going to suggest that if you're going to have a list of bullet points, you should never have more than 10 in that list. So if you're going to have, ideally, you're going to have 5 to 7. Now, if you've been somewhere long enough, it may be longer. But if you're gonna, and your bullet points should be no longer than 10 to 15 words. I'm getting down to I'm talking about the specificity of the structure of the thing. I'll let Mike and Alonzo talk about the rest of it. So the other thing, oh, I lost my point. Bullet points, link the bullet points. Oh, make sure you put the high business value or high organizational value at the top of your list.
Okay, because I have done process reorganization. I've been on process management teams where we did the swim lane charts, the as is and to be. I started ITIL on Coursera, which I know I need, and I'm going to do a PMP, which I know I need at this point in my career.
Well, at this, no. So let's not worry about certifications and trainings. I'm talking specifically about the stuff that you've done already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like looking at what you've done and figuring out how to frame it in a way where you got business or organizational improvements or things first, and then you can get to the technical things on the third, fourth, fifth bullet points.
So the fact that I did QA and QC and helped a company successfully pass ISO 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're responsible for blah 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 to pass, etc. Yes,
because when
part would be good. Yeah,
Houston,
that would be a top of the list bullet point.
The lead engineer told me at Houston Associates they wouldn't have been ISO certified if I hadn't helped. So
and in this case, it's not what the engineer told you.
Right.
You got that business through a compliance thing.
Yeah.
And it's what that leadership told you. And that's the big transition. It can't be engineer, can't be engineer, can't be engineer. An engineer is like a nurse, which is great. And an architect is like a doctor. Let's assume they both go to school for the same number of years. So they're equal, just different. Their jobs are different. And when a nurse goes to medical school, if they keep calling themselves a nurse, they won't be taken seriously as the doctor. And vice versa. So you have to make it clear that you're an architect. You did the design, you led the certification, you led the team, you led the documentation. That's architect stuff. We don't do PM. We're not project managers. There's more leadership. It's a lot of different things than what you're thinking it is. Join us on that one of our webinars. I want you to come to a webinar where we do one once a week where we talk about the exact role and what we do and the actual skills. I don't want to see you waste a lot of time on PMP type things.
All right. So last tips from Alonzo and then Mike.
One of the things, Jay, I keep looking at your stuff and it's just tremendously impressive, like lots of great things. But I'm just going to, reiterate and underscore, how did it create business value? If you don't have the metrics, if you can do a swag and get a kind of roundabout metric of where you think it might have added some value, that's still going to be helpful for you. But underscoring what you did for the company and what the leadership can recognize is going to be key. So I would like to see that. And also, is there any opportunities where you were able to present or otherwise continually interact with leadership and be able to underscore how that relates to those bullet points?
That
Because
was
we want to associate you with that leadership and less with the engineers that you work really well with.
Okay. Yeah. I was in contracting, so I was on site at the government location. It was their operation center. So I interfaced with the government NOC manager daily. And then, like I said, if there was a problem and I was there the next morning, I was dealing with the director of Diplomatic Telecommunication Service.
Add those things. Did you do anything strategic with them? Like, say, for instance, you're on the swing shift. You ascertained that there was a problem. You mitigated the risk and you provided that solution. That strategy. Did you do anything strategic with them to ensure that that didn't happen later on? And can you drill down on that in a bullet point?
we had to stay in our lane because the 3-letter activity is very strict on who can make policy. Me as a contractor, my position was to give my government managers enough information to make a logical decision. And if I stepped out of that lane, I would get smacked down.
Okay, well, that's still a form of strategy in my book, because you told them what they can do, what they shouldn't do, what they can't do. You gave them a consultative positioning within your sphere to add value for that business or add value.
Yes, there are other bullets on my CV. It's like we were rehashing Remedy. So we sat down with the Remedy developers. Well, instead of reinvent the wheel, DISA has a circular 310-55-1 on reporting, and they have RFO codes. 75% of the people that worked in the NOC were military. They all understand that reporting criteria. I convinced the government managers to have the RFO codes out of the DISA circular put into Remedy, and now we didn't have to have free form fields. We could select something that was a known standard. Now they can run metrics against that.
So you ascertained a problem and you provided a solution. You consulted with them how to mitigate that risk. Sounds like a really good business solution bullet point to me.
Yeah, I was on the OSS BSS team to evaluate the new systems. Then we had to write up the reports. Then the stakeholders selected the products they wanted. But then once it came time to field the solutions, I was on the process management teams. I was on the Remedy steering team. I was on the NetCool steering team. I was on all of the teams to optimize the tools based on my experience as a power user of those tools.
And could you safely say that, given the military, and I understand this, that there's going to be a lot of different personalities, a lot of alpha male personalities, and understanding how to mitigate and speak to them in a way that they understand to provide value?
You have to get over attitudes and personalities. You have to convey the information
regardless. So you're able to speak and build relationships with different department heads and be able to, create those relationships, build them and maintain them, and be able to ascertain what they're looking for in different type of environments. Another great bullet point.
Yes, I probably built strong relationships between the contractor, the actual ops base contractor, and the government managers of a 3-letter activity.
Yeah, these are the type of things that we can add to your resume that can, it'll be a departure from your engineering sphere and your background, and understand and kind of glean all of that stuff that you've already done. You've done it before. We just got to spit polish it and add it.
If you guys saw my CV, you'd be like, what the hell?
So that's what you sent us, right?
No, I didn't send you my CV. My CV is 16 pages long.
Okay.
I sent you a resume.
No. You mean the like an actual government CV? Okay.
I have a CV as if
I got
SAIC is going to grade you out, and your pay is determined on your CV, and you're going to get graded out as an SME under FedSim criteria. You need a CV.
Yeah, trust me, your resume was enough to
history.
So. And I think I'm going to close with these following things. One is you got to get rid of the acronyms, and if you're going to work in the civilian world, because MOA in consulting means memorandum of agreement.
Yeah.
MOA in a healthcare environment means melanoxidase inhibitor, and it's an antidepressant. And MOA in the military content means a minute of angle or a 60th of a degree. They're not going to know your acronyms, and that's going to put them off. Acronyms create errors. Two
I
is
tried to spell out my acronyms the first time they were presented. I tried to spell them out.
No, just don't use just don't use them. Just don't use them.
Don't use them.
Eliminate them.
Don't use
Get
them.
rid of them.
Okay.
Get
Remember,
rid
cut
of
it
them.
all out. Trim it all
And
out.
trim it out, and you're using it in as you're speaking. So I'm just saying, just get rid of them. It's going to protect you when you transition into the more civilian world. The other thing that Alonzo was saying, and here's where I want you to go for. So if you found a risk and you told somebody else to do about it, and somebody else was a decision maker, what you're really doing is you're preparing briefings. You're advising on risk. You're looking for. You're advising on opportunities for improvement. You're performing an impact analysis. You're looking at all the challenges that you have and what you can actually do about it and what each change would do. That's the kind of thing architects do.
Okay, yeah, I had to write after action reports of extended outages.
Same kind. Well, that's more of the outage report. So that's a problem identification. This is more, okay, here's the problem identification. Now, what's the risk of this occurring again? What fixes do we need to do? What changes need to be made?
Oh, I
And
would
what are
always
those?
put my opinion on the last paragraph. And a lot of times my opinion would be it would lay blame where it should have been laid, but they don't want it stated that blatantly in the write-up.
Yeah, I understand. All right, John, I want to thank you for your participation. I hope we gave you some guidance that's been helpful to you.
Oh, it's great. It was an awakening experience. I'm happy that I volunteered and you guys selected me.
Good. So happy we got to. And thank you again for your service.
Thanks for being a good sport as well, Jay.
And I look forward to continued communication with you guys.
Sounds great.
I might be on the screen with you guys one day.
That'd be great.
Yes, sir.
Thanks so
All
much.
right. All right. Thank you, Jay. So let's
Thanks.
bring in our next one. And then we've got I know Mike's got some slides to show us after this, after we go over our next one. Now, Mike, the next one is going to be I titled it Resume 3. Or sample. I think I accidentally put sample resume 3. It's not a sample. It's an actual.
Okay.
It's not actually. It's an actual. I promise. I've anonymized it. It's John Smith again.
Okay.
So S, are you there?
Hi. Hello, Mike. Hello, everyone.
Hello, S.
Hello, S. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I think I should put on my camera, is it?
If you desire, that would be great. You don't have to. It's up to you.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, I recognize that background.
Nice to see you.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike used to use that background to like.
I do. I've used that background many times. I love it, actually.
Yeah.
People used to, until people kept saying, "Is that your house?" And I was like, "Well, it isn't. I live in Florida," and it all changed everything. So
nice.
This
Alonzo,
is a very
you've got this too, right, Alonzo?
Oh yeah, I got that.
All right,
yeah.
all right, just make it.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Let me. I need to send you guys the LinkedIn link also, just in case. Let me find that. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. All right. Now we got everything.
So, okay, I've had a chance to read your resume. What is your goal career?
At the moment time, I'm actually focusing more on becoming a solution architect, mostly focusing on AWS.
Okay. Okay, so John, tell me about yourself.
Hi, I am Suranjan Sinha, and I have 25 years of background, which is not cloud-based, or it is not basically a solution architect based. It's completely mobile communication. I was working with mobile communication operators for past 25 years in the radio frequency planning, designing, and optimization of the networks. and it was basically working in different continents, different countries, and most of my work was how to manage the whole network designs, how to deliver the network to the operator after launching. I have almost done about 3 launching of fresh from scratch to fully launch about 3 networks in different parts of the world. And after all my 25 years of experience, I finally found out that the cloud is basically running very fast. I was before that I was more concentrating on data science career, but when I was doing the data science career in one of the project, I found out that it's really very difficult for running the machine learning, the codes basically in Python. It takes really a lot of time. So then I understood that how good it is or how important it is to actually come towards more on the cloud side. And that's why I started working on the cloud platform. And I have already done almost 3 certificates, mostly for completing my solution architect associate in AWS. And now I am more focusing on how to be a little bit exceptionally better solution architect on the AWS.
Okay, so we're going to cover that intro because you buried yourself a lot in there, but we'll cover that afterwards. So, okay, you said you're very excited about the cloud for the speed and the performance. Could you tell me the reasons why I could get better machine learning speed and better machine learning performance in my data center as opposed to the cloud? Can you tell me where the weaknesses are on AWS compared to my data center that would cause me to have a slower solution in AWS versus my data center?
Yeah, basically in the data center, you will be allocated a very, first of all, I will just tell you a little bit background because I'm not yet a very well trained solution architect. I'm still trying to become a solution architect. So I don't want to prove here that I am an excellent solution architect. As per my knowledge, understanding goes that in the machine learning, when we are in the data center or in the on-prem center, what happens is you are actually having a very limited processors and very limited hardwares on which you are working or on which you are running your machine learning models. Now, what happens is when your processing is happening, when it is trying to collect the data sets from your system, at that point of time, the data is not getting parsed or is not getting fully parsed in a smaller duration of time because of the volume. And that is the reason why it takes a little bit longer time, because your throughput is actually is reserved. You cannot actually have unlimited throughput because you cannot actually go to a very high bandwidth within the system or within the processors and the processing speeds, and thereby your data does not process well. But when we move to the cloud, there are options where we can have in parallel, we can add more instances which can automatically take the scaling of the instances if you are having a proper designing there. But even if you suppose get stuck even in cloud, you can actually increase your number of instances, number of virtual platforms, or you can even have a higher, bigger instances in just a click of minutes. You don't have to wait for months or years, because in data center, if you would like to go for additional server, typically in Asian market, it will take about 3 to 4 months to even get delivered, and another 1 month to get installed. So which is like 4 months, but here we are talking about a couple of minutes in which you can actually increase your capacity, and immediately you can finish off your work. And the best part of being in the cloud is that when you don't need that infrastructure, you can actually return back and release all the infrastructure, so you won't be even charged, which on the other side, when we are in the data center, we are actually booking the hardware, and we have to keep that hardware till eternal time. We cannot actually do anything with that hardware when it is obsolete. These are
Okay,
few. If you want to know more, I can go for.
I actually asked you the exact opposite question. I asked you why I could do it better and faster and potentially cheaper in my data center than the cloud. What is it about the cloud that is not as fast as the data center in terms of technology? Where are the technology weaknesses in the cloud? What are those things in the cloud that it won't do as well as my data center? That was the question I asked you.
I'm sorry, actually. Maybe I was so excited that I actually.
And that's okay. So, and you know, you've been in
me-
networking now for a long time, right? So this is a networking as part of a networking question and as part of a few other things. What is it about my data center that can outperform the cloud, and why it usually costs less? But let's just say why I can make it. Let's start with why my data center can outperform the cloud, whether it be for high performance compute, whether it be for machine learning. What is it that the cloud does that causes it to be slower?
In data center, I can, if I can have a more, is it pertaining to security side of the question?
Well,
No,
actually,
no.
that's another one. I could ask you why I could create greater security in the data center, but I'm not. I'm specifically asking you,
Okay.
what is it about the data center that I can do that gives me better performance than the cloud?
I would rather say that even my hardest guess won't reach to a conclusion, because I'm not actually a data center guy, and neither actually I am a very good in a cloud, but I'm still learning about it. So I cannot be able to really answer to your question. But if I can get your a small brief about it, it'd be very good, and I will prepare myself for
Sure. And I want to make it real clear for you, because I want to help you. If you don't know the data center, you can never work in the cloud, because all the cloud is a virtualized data center, meaning they build the same data centers that we do, and then they add a software layer on top of it, and then they rent you out virtual data center space. So what is it? Have you worked with virtual machines before? Let's get away from virtual machines. But you've worked with virtual machines. Have you ever worked with PCI pass-through technology in a virtual machine? No. Okay. You've got a lot of networking things, right? And you said you've been designing networks, right?
Yeah, for the mobile communication, where we have got basically it's a GSM structure that we are designing with the capacity and dimensioning.
GSM, great. GSM is based on the old TDM, time division multiplexing. Could you tell me how these GSM signals send time and time slicing, how that process works?
Yeah, you wanted to basically understand the time slicing, or basically how the communication is happening.
So in any kind of TDM or TDMA or GSM, they send data in a form of time slicing. Could you explain the way that works to me?
Yeah. First of all, if it's a GSM, so you will be having, meaning to say, if it is it has, how would you say, it's a PSK solution, phase shift keying. So when we are time slicing,
That's how they send data, and it's okay.
No. It's I will completely. I was not prepared for mobile communication. This thing.
It's fine. It's all over your resume. 2G, 3G, 4G, mobile network loss.
Yeah, of
performance,
course.
Capacity planning, dimensioning. So
I should be knowing about time slicing. It's not that no one asked about it. We don't use the time slicing for putting a network in operation. It is basically how a mobile voice is basically sampled in order to send it to another communication area. So we don't actually do the time slicing there. It is done automatically by the time slicing areas. Okay. And what time slicing means is basically when you have the interruption, how many number of slices that you are going to make into one bit of the signal. So it's basically to how much level I will not be able to hear if I make more number of samples. But honestly, if I have to explain it in a proper way, I will not be able to. I'm not prepared for it.
And I'll help you with that. That's actually not what it is in mobile networking. It's something different, but that's fine. You said you've been designing mobile networks. What's the process to design a mobile network? Because that sounds a whole lot like solution architecture to me.
Yeah, basically when we are doing a designing of a network, in the very beginning of the scratch, we generally are allocated with frequencies, and these frequencies are shared frequencies. They are being shared in different locations. So if I talk about GSM, because that is what you are talking about. So in GSM, what happens is we are reusing the same frequency. So you are given bandwidth, which is about 200 kilohertz of each bandwidth, and then you will get some number of spots. Okay. So each 200 kilohertz, you will be getting something like about 50 spots, out of which you design the voice communication part, that is basically the beacon, just to give you as a layman's voice. Otherwise, it is called as the BCCH. So that you will be having as a separate, and then you will be having a capacity separate. Now, why it is made separate is when you are using a voice, it is not only the BCCH or the beacon is not only carrying your communication, the signaling part, but it is also carrying other informations also along with the signaling. And the traffic is when you are on the dedicated channels. So what we are doing in the designing part, we are not creating any separate layers. What we are doing is we are segregating the frequencies into two different parts. One is the capacity and one is the beacon. The beacon planning is done separate, where we are reusing the beacon at a distance of something like about, you can say, if it is in the other direction, you can use it within about 500 meters. If it is in the same direction, you have to have a little bit of distance of more than about 1.5 to 2 kilometers in a suburban area, or in a dense urban area, you can come down to a little bit closer. So we have cell sizes, which we don't design it through our verbal. We have a separate tools for doing that. And each vendor, like Ericsson or Huawei or Samsung, Nokia, they have their own individual planning tools in which we place where we need the site locations, and then we try to find out what is the interference. Now here the interference, what we are trying to find in the GSM is more on the beacon side or the BCCH interference side, in which we try to find out, how much is basically the interference that is caused by individual cells when they are communicating at particular point. And then we prepare one set of sites we clean the interference, and we have a complete number of sites that we are going to come up with there. So this is basically on the scratch side. On the capacity area, we have a total MOU, basically how much is the minutes of usage and what is the customer base that we are targeting. And then we calculate the total number of airlines or the traffic that is required accordingly based on different clutter size, that is urban, suburban, dense urban, rural, open. We divide the number of the capacity into different portions. And then based on how many number of sites, we then find out the capacity for those sites in order to come down to how many types of the racks required. Mostly it was called, I think, TRX or something like that. And then that is basically on the capacity side. And then we come up with the number of sites which we try to install. Now, to connect one site to another site, we use the microwave transmission. And that transmission is basically carried out in either hub and spoke form, or it can be a chain formation. Mostly hub and spoke is most commonly used, because in the chain, if one of the side goes down, the whole following sites also they go down, and those sites are then connected to the switch. In the switch, then it is carried out with connected to another portion. Mostly the core part we don't handle. I am basically on the RF part, the radio frequency part. Transmission planning, I know a little bit, or I can say I can manage a little bit, but very deep into the transmission planning, I will not be able to really give you much on the details. But you want me to go a little bit more? I can tell how we do the capacity upgrades.
No, that's okay. I think that gave me the answer I was looking for. It definitely gave me a lot of information. So, are you familiar with storage?
I think if you ask me a question regarding what is the difference between the file storage and the block storage, I can give a very broken update about it. I'm yet to go to a detail about it.
Okay,
After
well,
hearing
wanna...
last seminar, I have put it in my agenda that I will be going through it.
So, what is it? I see. I'm pretty sure I saw you. You put. I want to make sure I check this one more time. What goes involved? What's? Let's say you have to. I see you have change management here. Let's say you have a massive change that needs to occur inside of an organization. What do you need to do to make change management actually happen, to make it that the organization will adapt to that change?
Related to cloud, you mean to say, right?
Could be cloud. You want to roll out a new 5G network, want to roll out a traditional data center, want to roll out a new business process, want to get everybody to go from driving on the right side of the road to the left side of the road. I don't care. How do you accomplish a big change?
Yeah. So first of all, we have to understand from where we have to change, means from what is the existing to the target. What we are changing is basically when there is a changing, what exactly is required, what is the focus behind it, meaning to say what all the transformations that we need to do. Change management, if I would say, because I have acquired a different company has been acquired, and they're just giving you an example. Like if another company is acquiring it, and then we have to migrate our system to a cloud system to the new company's cloud system, then what we need first of all is what is my architecture and what is their architecture, on which platform it is, whether they are both on premises, if someone is in cloud, how we can accommodate my architecture in their architecture. And first, what we have to understand is where they are. I mean, my application is running in what type of software, what are basically the other companies' softwares that they are running. If I move to cloud, whether it will be easier, can I move all my applications to the cloud, or do I have to keep some in on-prem, some I have to move to cloud? So there are few. Is it the correct answer? Can I explain a little bit more on the same lines, or am I going absolutely?
It's actually going in a very different direction. So what I want to do is I want to read something to you, and then I'm going to really give you some serious feedback, because I really want to get you to your goal. I know you, again, I can tell you've done a lot of things, but since your goal is architecture, what do you think the main three things that a cloud architect or a solution architect actually does in their job? I'll read you from CIO Magazine, which is what we do. Leading the cultural change for cloud adoption, developing and coordinating a cloud architecture, and developing a cloud strategy and coordinating the adoption process. Those three. Now, cultural change for cloud adoption, we're going to talk about that in a minute when I give you your answers. Developing and coordinating the cloud architecture and developing a cloud strategy. You want to know what else we do? And these are what the CIOs said they want in the skills. Finding talent with the necessary skills, meaning interviews. assessing application software and hardware, creating a cloud team, establishing best practice for the cloud across the company, like what should your demilitarized zones look like for web access, for example, selecting cloud providers and vetting third-party services, overseeing governance and mitigating risk, working with security people to develop incident response procedures, like if you're hacked, who speaks to the press, which lawyers get involved, who does what to remediate the systems, and basically deal with budgets. So that's typically what we do. So I initially asked you some questions, and I'm going to go through from the beginning. When I asked you to tell me about yourself, remember in the beginning of this, I said the average manager has a maximum 30-second attention span. That was your chance to walk in and tell me that you are a solutions architect and that you've got a lifetime of experience in various technology fields solving problems. Because you have been. For the last, how long have you been dealing with tech projects and fixing broken things? You've been solving problems. That part would be something I needed to hear right then and there. I would want to hear something about your energy, enthusiasm, passion for the work personally, because that's what I'm looking for. And that would have been there. Now, when I asked you, I forget what it was, when I asked you why the data center would typically be higher performance than cloud. And the reason I asked you that as the first technical question was you have an experience in networking. My data center, if it's attached to my building, what's the latency on a LAN in my building? None,
0.
right? Now I got to go to the cloud that's 1,500 miles away. Is there latency there?
Sure.
Okay. In my network, can I prioritize somebody's traffic over somebody else's? Can I make the speeds of my system anything I need it to be? Can I do any of that? Yes. I can't do any of that on the cloud provider because it's a shared network. So we have no idea what's actually going to be there. In my data center, I don't need to run a hypervisor. I can run straight on bare metal. In the cloud, I have to use a hypervisor, which means I typically lose about 10% max performance from my systems. In my data center, I can use the RAID array that's in my server, which can give me 19 million IOPS. In the cloud provider, the fastest I can get is 250,000 IOPS. I'd need to put 80 drives in RAID 0 just to get to equivalent performance of my data center. In my cloud, typically speaking, I can do it cheaper because the cloud provider has to buy the same stuff that I do. Then they have to manage it. Then they have to sell it. Then they're at hyperscale and they've got all kinds of procedures. So the key is I can always build a higher performance system in my data center. The cloud offers me the agility, and you got to the agility, which was good, but you didn't. It was the wrong question. So I'd say listen to the question a little more carefully, because that ends a lot of interviews. Now, when I asked you about whether it was time slicing with the old school TDMA or GSM, or whether it's frequency hopping that's used, or data sequence spectrum technology, it's all a means that data is sent. With the time division multiplexing that it used to be, we had a little data, and let's say there were 4 of us. You sent your data, Chris sent his data, Alonzo sent his data, I sent it, and we were all allocated a period amount of time, and that's how we sent our data. It could have been data, it could have been voice. That was me checking to see how deep your tech background was on networking, which I always like to do. If I got an answer that I just don't remember, but here's what I know, it would have gone better because the answer that I got didn't really work for me. So then I decided to.
It will not, because data slicing for us, the voice slicing is actually what we are working on as RF. So it's a question which is in very depth, and I couldn't explain. That was my bad.
Yeah, and the voice is different. It's typically it goes into what's called a codec, and a codec basically compresses it and sends the difference. So that's a little on the different side. Now, I asked a change management question, and again, remember what I said: leading the cultural change for cloud adoption, developing and coordinating a cloud architecture. So, in change management, the first thing that I need to do is speak to the executives, or maybe it's not an executive change. Let's just say it's a technology change. The network team decides they want to make a change on the network. The first thing they need to do is kick off a change management request. That request needs to go to all stakeholders. All stakeholders need to evaluate that change. They need to perform an impact analysis and a risk analysis of what goes on to that change. Process. After we get that change, that's going to go to speak management approval. Now, because in many cases the change are going to require a change in the organizational culture, we may need to create some marketing collateral. We'll have to get executive buy-in. It was all that stuff that was missing. What you gave me was all the engineering stuff, but that's all the architect stuff. It's a very different career. Same thing when I asked you how to design something. You went into every technical little detail, but you know what I didn't hear? Find the needs of the business.
Project
What is
management
the business trying to?
Yes.
Well, that's not the project. This is the architecture piece. What are the needs of the business? What are they trying to do? How big is it going to scale? What is the business trying to achieve? How will this work with the current technology platforms? What is the availability that these systems need? What is the performance that these systems need? I need to know all this stuff long before I can think about the technical stuff which you gave me. So what's missing on you to get to that architect level, and you're not going to get it out of something like an AWS Solutions Architect Professional, is still the architect piece. The architect piece goes from the tech itself to what can the tech actually do for the business itself. That was the missing piece. So, for example, and you definitely don't want to put under experience the cloud quest or the cloud certifications. Put that under certifications, not experience. That's another story in and of itself. I would like you, if you've done anything in your old company ABC that we have on your resume, because Chris made it so that I can't see which companies they are. I would like you to tease out any of the leadership things that you've done. What any kind of a gap analysis between starting point and end point, any presentations that you've done, any discussions that you had with executives or key stakeholders, any type of architecture or document repositories you're trying to create, anytime you created a process. What was the impact of what you did on the business? What was the impact of what you did on performance measures, the statistics measures? Did you take them from 99.9% availability to 99.99% availability? Did you participate in working groups? Did you design any new specifications? Because you've got a lot of experience on your resume. You're going back to 1995.
Yeah.
So I want to see the big things that you've done for your architect resume.
Just to interrupt, can I go for 2-page? Because what I am getting
anybody that tells you it has to fit on 1 page, don't listen to them. Yes. If you need 2 pages, take 2 pages.
Right. Totally agree.
You might even need 3 pages.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Any of this, and a completely different thing that I wanted to bring up about your resume is you need to get the way that yours is formatted with the text boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the go-to.
You need to get rid of the text boxes. Like you need to free flow text, not text boxes. And it just because it just makes it more difficult for the end user, aka the applicant tracking system. Now, I'm not suggesting that you submit your application through applicant tracking systems, but if you're going to, don't use constricting things like text boxes.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
But definitely go to 2 pages if you need to go to 2 pages.
And let's talk about projects. If I'm looking for an architect and somebody says that they coded something, they've just convinced me they're not an architect.
Right.
If they told me that they built a website, again, they've just convinced me they're not a solutions architect. If they coded, built anything, because that's not what we do. What do we do as solutions architects? We respond to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. We create architecture teams. We lead the engineers in a proof of concept testing. We give presentations at conferences, at executive briefings. We facilitate meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And we create architectural documentation, manage architectural repositories. We're creating thought leadership documentation. The only thing we don't do as architects is touch the technology.
No command line.
No command line. We don't work with Linux. We don't work with DevOps. We don't work with Python. We don't work with SysOps. That's cloud engineering work and DevOps. So an architecture project for an architect could be designing a reference architecture for an investment trading firm or something like that. That's an architecture thing. Architects write documents. We don't code. We don't configure. So if you put these kind of engineering projects on, you're not going to get architecture interviews. And if you do,
just one point. Just one point. Would you like to know that many times it is requested, like if you have done any architectural projects or something. So if it is not coding, if it is not, what exactly should it be?
The design,
the
management of the design.
I'll give you some examples. One that I worked created a next generation contact center for the world's largest bank. Led a team of 17 voice and video architects. Responded to the RFP for this. Created a board. What the kind of things that I do on my architect jobs? So I created a healthcare CXO team where every year CIOs would come from all around the world and they would tell us the needs of their healthcare organization. That's the thing.
So the question for you, S, is have you done any? And if you have not, then you need to figure out what you've done that you can talk about that's comparable to an architecture project. Does that make sense?
Actually, what I was asking is that as showcasing my experience after learning, before the job, like hands-on projects.
No. That's why I'm saying, have you done an architecture design? Have you designed? Do you have a architecture project to talk about that is not a hands-on configuration and implementation? Do you? Yes or no?
I have done one this thing which is not actually architectural design.
So no. Okay. So then what you have to do is you have to examine your experience and find what it is that you've done in the past that you can talk about to highlight the same things that an architecture project would highlight. Mike, go. What are those things?
Yes, exactly. And I'm going to tell you. So, but before I do this, I want to make it clear. Let's say you wanted to show the world that you're an airplane pilot, right? You're with me so far? What if you took pictures of yourself fixing and using wrenches and tools to screw parts in the airline engine? Do you think that would make anybody think you're a pilot, or would it make you think you're a mechanic? So, architects don't build. We don't code. We don't configure. We don't touch the technology. We create strategies. So, someone that designed an architecture for a retail bank to improve customer satisfaction would be an architecture. Designing an algorithmic low latency, high frequency trading system that can act upon news information and buy and sell stock would be there. And that would be the architectural blueprint of all the components that would make it necessary, not how to do it. Designed a mission critical, designed a demilitarized zone for a mission critical web app for a global bank, where you describe the number of layers of next generation firewalls you need and the IDS IPS systems that you need. And then you talk about what kind of hardening you do on the load balancers and what kind of hardening would be done on the operating systems and what kind of endpoint protection would be used and what kind of identity strategies would be used, again, as an architecture project. Designed a cloud wide area network to connect 15,000 remote locations by using the cloud as transit, and created a hierarchical hub and spoke environment to get around the limitations of VPC peering, again, would be something. Created a super high security cloud environment inclusive of 1,000 VPCs necessary for microsegmentation to employ a microsegmentation defense in depth and zero trust security strategy. That's architecture. Architecture could be a thought leadership document talking about what AI could do for various healthcare problems. A thought leadership piece that an architect could be right with these given AI things, how could we use that to help airlines lower their fuel costs by making predictions on when they should purchase their fuel option contracts? Is that kind of sinking in that this is not tech stuff, that this is not engineering stuff, this is all business stuff? That's the architect job. And the reason I've got people with 10 years of cloud engineering experience and they have to be completely trained for architecture jobs is that it's a completely different set of skills. So I want to do two things. I want you to download the free guide. Somebody from my team, please put that in the chat box, because I really want you to download that. Come to a free webinar and we'll talk about what you need to be for an architect. But those are the things that I want to make down. Those are the projects you put down. And they need to be there somewhere. The projects have to be related to your job, not the projects from somebody else's job. The rest of what I would say, because I really want to help you, is, again, you've done a lot. I want you to practice as if you are explaining it to people that have known nothing about technology. Because when you work as an architect, you know who you're going to deal with? You're going to deal with executives. They're going to be the people that have to buy your product. They're going to have to buy your recommendations. So I would start explaining things to non-technical people.
True.
I used to use my wife. She's a medical professional. Well, so am I, but I think they're her there. I would take my architectures and I would explain them to my wife. Could she understand it? I would explain them to my brother. And if they got it, then I knew that I could answer it simply enough. So I'd really work on getting it out, being able to explain it. Not by using silly words or silly examples, by just making sure your answers are crisp. You do that, what you've given me today will be raised 1,000,000 levels higher. And you'll be in a much better state. Much better.
What was the guide that you wanted me to put the link to? Which one? Sorry.
We have one on how to become a cloud architect that lists every skills that architects actually have.
All right. Could you also include, for anyone that's watching that may not have that ability to talk about designing anything, what's some examples of, like, especially for people that, like me, I'm not a tech guy, I'm a business guy. I come from business. What are some of the architecture that, like, if I get asked about architecture projects, I can't talk about it because I've never done it. What are some of those transferable, relatable things that could pivot to when someone asks me about a architecture project, if I don't have that tech background?
So, and here's what I really want you to think about. And honestly, ideally get architecture training, which is different than these certification trainings. But here's the thing. I'm sure in your life, you've had to architect something. Architecture is really the following. It's determining where you want to go and figuring out a plan on how to get there. Architecture is a planning career. So is there anything you ever had a plan for? Did you ever have to plan a big event? Did you ever have to plan a big networking thing? Did you ever have to plan a big rollout of any of these systems? Did you ever have to lead a team? Did you ever have to lead a group of people and get their feedback, aggregate that feedback, document and present it to someone else? Again, this is really all architecture stuff. Did you have to create any documentation, more than just pickers, but documentation that explains technology? Again, that's another architecture thing. Have you presented at conferences? Have you presented at industry briefings? Have you presented to your teams? Have you... those would be things that I bet you've done in your past, because you've been involved in 25 years, that would really look a whole lot like architecture stuff.
Yeah, and what all you... Yeah, so what all you are suggesting is something which is doable and is actually what we do, even though, I mean, not particularly to me, but most of our people do it in most of their part of their life. I mean, even if you are just maybe 5-6 years experience, you will still do such type of thing. And those can be put into some documentation, which you told, which I never thought was part of architectural designing guy. But now I think, I mean, documenting can be really a very good area, which can actually showcase many of the understanding of the architecture work.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing to remember is that if if you're asked about architecture projects, what they're really asking about is a business case.
Yeah.
You know, and what your part or what your contribution was to this business case, for a lack of a better term. That's what they're asking about, and they use the word project just because it's a
General
blanket terminology.
Yeah.
But it gets people confused because then they're like, oh, I got to go find my GitHub portfolio and showcase my projects. And no. Completely different types of projects. My background in hotels, doing new hotels openings and overseeing the opening and construction of new hotels, that's more akin to an architecture project than what most people think when they hear the word project. And so that's why I asked Mike to talk about what are some of these non-tech, because he kept giving design examples, and I'm like, let's get away from that, because people could still go down that rabbit hole of the tech that's involved with the design. But no, it's about the business processes and the business changes and all the business stuff. So I hope you found this valuable, S.
Yes, sure.
Good.
Yes.
Good. I know Mike's got some things that he wants to showcase us for everybody. Did we have any last words for S?
No, I think we're on target with that. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we are. I think really what I would try to do is try to figure out first how to expand your resume and show all the good stuff we're talking about. It's going to take you 3 pages of well-written resume with your level of years of experience. It's okay. Always tease out the business benefits whenever possible. Always show the leadership. Always show the facilitation. Always show the problem solving. I think if you do that, it's going to look a lot better. Get rid of anything that's too techy that you can't really talk about. Because at your stage, you don't have a hard time with resume scanners. You've got enough experience with a properly written resume. You just need to be able to explain what you know and be able to explain it real well, because you've got lots of years of experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for participating on that.
Thank you. Thank you for all your lovely advice, and they really mean a lot to me.
Good.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy you're here. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you took part. Have a good, I guess, night now. Or is that?
Yeah, but I will still continue because I think there are so many questions on the comment section now. Just saw it.
Yeah.
So I'll still hold on.
And we will.
All right.
We'll happily, and I'm happily going to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all for coming.
All right. So, Mike, you wanna share your things with us, and then we can hit all the questions?
Yeah. So I briefly want to talk about the message you put out there and on LinkedIn. And the reason is, if I'm going to hire someone, chances are I'm going to check out who they are. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to do some form of, what do they call it? Open source investigation. I'm going to check out the person's social media. And why am I going to do it? Because what I care about as a hiring manager, again, is the following. Can the person do the job? Yes. But can I trust them? Do I like them? Do I want to work with them? Are they going to be able to work with my team? Are they going to alienate others? Are they going to have a good attitude, a good energy, and a good enthusiasm? And are they going to go above and beyond? So I saw 4 posts on social media today. Actually, this was in the last few days. And actually, it was in about 2 hours when I started looking for it. They just struck me and I went, whoa! And I took screenshots of them. And then that's what I wanted to talk about. I'm going to show you some social media posts. And I want you to think about them in the context of, I want someone that can do the job, someone that's energetic, enthusiastic, happy, fun to work with, going to raise the energy on my team, emotionally intelligent, that. I want you to think in that context, because I want you to understand my job as a manager is to make sure that the team does a good job. If Chris, me, and Alonzo were doing a good job and I hire Hal the hairy, mean hacker, and he's mean and nasty to me, Chris, and Alonzo, are we getting anything done? No, we're getting nothing done. So we have to look for people that are positive, that are going to show an energy enthusiasm. So I want you to see a couple of posts that I noticed. Now, here was a post that I call a rant, where a person says, I've never been rejected from a job this way, nor have they ever been disrespected so much, what have you. And then it goes on, and they show the sample of the message someone wrote to them where it said their resume is a total wreck. Truth be told, I actually clicked on this link because I was curious, and the person had about 2 pages full of buzzwords that had absolutely nothing. So if an employer were to look at this, they'd go on an interview or they'd speak to them, and the person would say, I don't know who put this together. It looks like ChatGPT wrote a resume for someone, and it was that generic and it proved nothing. So there was that. Now, here's the thing. Why would you show that you've been rejected? Why would you show that you're not doing well? And here's the reason. People like to hire people that are winning. People like to hire people that are successful. So please show your success. Show your wins. It's okay to lose, but you don't have to publicly talk about it. But that's one thing. But these get worse. That was one of the least bad of the bunch. Now, I went to the next one. Now, this is pretty scary again. Well, there you have it, folks. After nearly 5 years of pouring every ounce of my heart and soul into the field, I'm tired of being insulted with the reality of accepting a 5 to 10 hour work week job. It's infuriating to think that all my relentless hard work and determination has led to a dead end. When interviewers grill me about my lack of certifications, it's crystal clear the real problem is the lack of support and opportunities in the field. And don't even get me started on the constant layoffs every 3 to 6 months when budgets get tight. How in the world am I supposed to think about advancing my career when I can barely keep a job under circumstances that are completely beyond my control? And it goes worse. It's a complete joke. Now, this particular person, 2 things. One is they have to have a set of skills. I did look at this person's certification, and they had 2 CompTIA certifications. I have no problem with CompTIA certifications. I often like them. I call them the pre-fundamental certification, meaning if you're going to do them, and I don't necessarily suggest do them, you do them first, and then after you do that, your fundamentals training, and then after you do that, you do your job training, because they're not enough. So there's that. I am sure if this person had real skills for the job they actually wanted to, they would be hired pretty quickly. I'm telling you, it is near impossible to hire someone with good, strong skills after interviewing thousands of people. So that was one. Now, here's another one. Now, this is... So those 2 showed an attitude problem, right? The person didn't seem excited, positive, not super likable. And here's where a person, Luen, showed that they're not competent. Now, this post was made by somebody that is looking for a cloud security architect job. So here's the post. Today, I was walking through an AWS multi-tiered security lab that is setting up a virtual machine using a load balancer and a content delivery network and encrypting traffic each stage. There was a moment where everything was set up and the hosted web page couldn't be reached. First, does that sound like a security project to you? Did you hear of anything related to next generation firewalls or firewalls? Did you hear anything related to endpoint security? Did you see anything related to IAM or packet filters or security groups or anything? None of it. So it completely missed all the security. So now we've got a person that wants a security job that just told the world they don't know what security is. And then after checking, it became obvious his virtual machines weren't connected. Okay, the load balancer wasn't configured correctly, and therefore it wasn't connected. A lot of layers here. Cloud stuff is hard. This kind of thing, the reason I mean, I don't really suggest building this, because this is not the kind of lab that would be appropriate for a security architect at all. It has nothing to do with what security architects do, and it shows the person doesn't know security. And it also thinks they think cloud stuff is hard. They didn't even approach the cloud here. This is just basically a virtual machine and a load balancer. There's nothing here compared to what you would normally deal with in a cloud environment where we would likely have, say, an enterprise would have, say, 200 to 500 applications, 100,000 IP addresses, 3,000 to 5,000 remote locations, hundreds of vendors, and security appliances across a wide variety of things. So This is, again, a person showing they're not ready. They don't have the skills. Now, if that person instead showed their skills for the job, it would be fantastic. But there's lots of things. And I guess I'll go through one more. And here's a person that is basically saying, I'm going to sue you. So today someone went on a job interview. Somewhere along the line, they were on the job interview. The conversation went wrong, and they believe it's because of their age. And then they start talking about discrimination in the religion in this job post. They start getting into all kinds of different things. And I think you need all of the best people in a company. You need all of the best people from all over the world. You need the most culturally diverse set of people you can have and educationally diverse people to solve problems. But the second people use words that employers think lawsuits, poof, they can't interview you. They can't actually hire you. So I kind of wanted to see if that makes sense. You've got to show competency. You got to show your easiness and friendliness to work with. And here's the reason. Let's say you saw a cat walking down the street, or a dog, whatever you like. I don't care, any furry creatures. If it had thorns on it and you felt like you were going to pick up the dog and you were going to get stuck, you wouldn't want to pick up the dog or the cat. But if the cat came over to you and you had some tuna in your hand and it wanted to eat the tuna out of your hand, you want to pick up the cat and cuddle with it because it's cute to you. So kind of start thinking about the message you portray. Again, we can all make mistakes, but employers are going to look at your social media profile. Does it show that you're someone they can put in front of a large number of people? Does it show you're a person that's going to raise the energy on the team? Is your social media showing your excellence? Or is it showing anger or frustration or hostility or anything that would make an employer be more afraid to work with you? So those are some of the things I wanted to convey. We're going to do 2 more days of, realistically speaking, interview content because it's so important. You know, I want everybody to be able to get any job they want. And once you're trained, a lot of that goes to your interview. Do we have any questions from the audience here?
So we've got one question that we can get to before we've got to wrap it up. It's the only question we've got. So that worked out well. So we'll answer this one and then we'll wrap it up and we'll see everybody back here next week. Foolish the Crow asks, hello, can I have some advice on creating great, relevant thought leadership?
Yeah, so here's the thing, and I've been considered a thought leader and been writing thought leadership documents for the last 25 years. So the first thing is you need to know something about the topic. And by something, I mean a lot. So that means research. So if I were to write a thought leadership document, even with my 25 years experience, typically speaking, I'm going to spend 1 to 2 months of research. I'm going to be pulling all kinds of data. I'm going to be pulling all kinds of statistics. I'm going to be analyzing that statistics. I'm going to be analyzing, for example, the problems that that the industry that I have or whatever I was dealing with. I want to know what challenges that industry actually has. I want to know what industry analysts are saying. I want to know what industry insiders are saying. Because if I don't understand the problem, how can I solve it? And when I get a good understanding of whatever problem it is that I'm trying to solve, now I can start thinking about the solution. I can work backwards every single day and say, okay, these are the challenges. What do I need to go solve them? And what are the forces, realistically speaking, that we can use to build business? They are people, they are processes, how things get done, and they are technology. So when you're creating a thought leadership document, what you're doing is you're looking at an industry challenge, you're becoming an expert on that challenge, and then you're figuring out what technologies, people, and processes that you can do to mitigate those challenges, and then you're showing how those challenges will help that business. And in ideally, you're going to be coming up with some sample business cases where you show your assumptions that for this business with this challenge, should they implement a solution like this, a solution would typically cost something like this and have an architecture of the solution or a sample architecture, and then show the business benefits it would provide for a business with sample things like whether you're measuring impact on revenue or whether you're measuring impact on operational expenditures or what have you. or impact on net income, figure out what your metrics are going to use and be able to demonstrate that. That's what goes into the heart of a thought leadership, because it's showing that you know and have a strategy to guide somebody to use to solve a various problem with a given technology or what have you. That's how I've always created it. Great question.
All right. So this is a good last one. We'll do this one. How many minutes, seconds should I spend answering an interviewer's question?
Ernest, generally 30 seconds or less, and I'll give you an example where it can go 2 minutes. So 30 seconds is a lot. So for example, I asked a lot of people to tell me about themselves, right? That's the first interview of most things. And in many cases, it went on for so long, it was hard for me to even remember. All I wanted something like this, and I'm going to make something along the line. I've been an IT architect. I've been an enterprise architect now for the last 25 years. I've had the opportunity to work with the largest global banks, the largest internet service providers, and the largest healthcare organizations. I've been able to help them improve their business performance, improve their availability, and improve their agility with architecture teams that I've led. I've designed billion-dollar-plus architectural solutions. I've closed businesses in every continent in the world except for Antarctica. I've spent 2 decades now helping others build their architecture careers. It was not more than 30 seconds, right, Chris? Approximately 30 seconds either there. Now, sometimes things are a little more complex. Now, if you get given an opportunity when you know something really well to answer a question, if Chris were to ask me, say, Mike, what are the LSAs and OSPF? Now that, if I can answer it excellently, I'm going to go a little longer. I might say, well, in the link state routing protocol, open shortest path first, Chris, there's typically 5 links in a normal area. And they are LSA type 1, which are generated by the routers themselves. And they are the status of all of its links. There are LSA type 2s, and these are typically sent by the designated router and the backup designated router in their area. Now, we also have the concept of a summary LSA, which is a link state advertisement that's coming from another area. That's called an LSA type 3, and they would be coming from other areas. We also have the concept of a link state advertisement type 4. And the LSA type 4 describes how we reach the autonomous system border router, which is a router that borders to an external routing domain. For example, if we redistributed in some EIGRP subnets. And a type 5 LSA is obviously an external LSA, as if it came in from another protocol like RIP or IGRP or EIGRP, what have you. Now, of course, we've got 2 various types. We can have a L5 E1 type metric where the metric increases with each hop, or we can have an E2 metric where that doesn't increase with each hop. And they're your primary forms of LSAs. Now, why did I answer it that long? Because I knew I could answer it, and I knew I could answer it in such detail that it would satisfy them. But otherwise, 30 seconds to a minute. I'm going to be short and concise and to the point. And I will get to Preb's question as well. What goes into 8-hour interviews? So, Preb, I've had a lot of these 8-hour interviews, and typically what they are is the following. So let's say I want to hire someone, and for the best jobs, there's going to be 8, 10, 12 interviews because they're looking to put up to see who's going to survive until the end and who people like. So let's say I have an environment where I'm the manager. I call someone, I like them, I speak to them. Then I have 2 or 3 people from my team call the person, and I like them. Now I fly them into the office, and when I fly them into the office, I schedule them for 8 interviews. Each interview is an hour with 1 lunch interview scheduled and typically a dinner interview scheduled. And they may actually go from 9 a.m. to, say, 7 p.m. at night. And that's typically what goes into an 8-hour interview or a 9-hour interview or a 10-hour interview. There may also be some presentations in there. And that was an incredibly great question.
Right. Mike, I know you would love to go forever and ever, but as you can see, we're starting to drop because of our other commitments. Alonzo had
even our team
had a call at 10 after that he had to get off. I know you've got one at 15 after, and
I do. Yes.
I'm always got stuff I'm working on. But all right, let's wrap it up, Mike. Any last words about the topic?
Yeah, I hope you guys all learned a lot and you could see the implications of your resume, your LinkedIn, and how it would affect your interview. That was my goal for today. We have 2 more weeks of lots of free live sessions coming up. I mean, it's lots of people, some great guest experts, some architects that we train, and many of them never worked in tech before they got their first architect jobs. It's going to be Party City. We've got something going on for the next 2 weeks. I hope you come by. I hope you stop by, and I hope you get a lot out of these free sessions. We currently have a 50% off sale off of all of our training, which I don't think it lasts much longer. Was it today, tomorrow, Chris?
It's Sunday.
It's Sunday. Okay, even better.
Yep.
Okay, so that's there through Sunday. And please check the description of this video. Get guides on your interview, please. Get guides on your career. And there's got so many free guides and free ebooks in this video. And I was honored to spend the afternoon with you, and I hope to see many more of you soon. Take care, everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.